Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Accelerate to Industry session. And today we're lucky enough to have a wonderful leader from one of Charlotte's most prominent organizations, Kim Henderson from Novant Health. We are beyond grateful to have her joining us today and for her to take time out of her busy schedule to share with us her wisdom on achieving success. Just to give you a little bit of background on Kim, she's currently the Chief of Staff to the CEO of Novant, and has a 4-state integrated network of physician clinics, outpatient centers, and hospitals. Novant's network consists of more than 1,600 doctors and 29,000 employees at more than 650 locations, including 15 medical centers and hundreds of outpatient facilities and clinics. With a 2019 operating revenue of $5.4 billion, Novant is undoubtedly a powerhouse in the healthcare industry. In addition to her role as Chief of Staff, Kim is also the Senior Vice President of Executive Leadership Development for the organization. And as Chief of Staff, she maintains the high-level oversight of the Novant Health Board of Trustees and the entire executive team. And through this, she assists the CEO with internal, external strategy discussions. She influences business execution within the CEO's suite, and she leads project initiatives within the CEO's team. So pretty large role in the organization. Not only that, in addition to this role, Kim is also currently serving her second term as the membership chair for women executives. She has served on the Fletcher School Board of Trustees since 2016 and has recently accepted the role of leadership development chair for the American Heart Association for the year 2020, where she also serves on the Charlotte board. So please join me in giving her a warm welcome to our session today. And thank you again for being here, Kim. We really appreciate it.
Well, good morning, and thank you so much. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I much appreciate it. And I am going to flip my screen over to the presentation. Let me get that going. Oh, where did it go? Hold on. Nothing can ever be easy, right?
So, we're all learning. It's okay.
Yeah.
So there should be that little monitor screen on the bottom for you to share.
Yes. And it was working, but it's not working right now. So hold on. I'm going to figure this out. There we go. Okay, here we go.
We're seeing it? Yep, we got it, Kim.
Okay. I want to make sure that you all see it.
We can see that.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So first, thank you all for the invitation today to be here with you all. It really is a privilege to be here. And I don't use that word privilege loosely. It is, you will hear later in my presentation why I feel like it is a privilege to be invited and come before you and share some of my own personal experiences. I do wish that we were in person, but I am extremely grateful that technology is helping us keep us connected through this global pandemic that we're all living in right now. I know you all are working on your graduate degrees and participating in these weekly sessions. I'm going to share a number of stories about my personal professional journey and things that I want you to take away. There's two primary things that I want you to take away today is one, the importance of career mapping, and two, that you need to realize that you are always interviewing, no matter where you go or who you're interacting with. So what I'm going to share today are real life practical examples. And I have had the privilege to sit through lots of these in my history and professional journey. And I have really thought about, well, what stories, practical things can I share with you today that I think would make a difference? So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to, the first thing that I want to share is I am going to presume, because we're not all together and I can't ask you to raise your hand or anything or indicate to me, but I'm going to presume that every single person that's on the call today has a LinkedIn profile. Second thing I'm going to presume is that every single person today looked me up on LinkedIn prior to this meeting. If you didn't, you should have. And the reason why I say that is because career success is really built on networking. And so let me give you a real quick example. Several years ago, I was invited to speak at the UNC sports management program. And, at the end, there's Q&A. There was a young lady that came up and asked if she could connect with me. And she reached out to me on LinkedIn. And then on LinkedIn, she sent me a note and said, is there any way that I could send you my resume just to look at and give me some professional feedback? I said, absolutely, no problem. She sent me her resume. I looked at it. Do you know, I don't know what this girl did, but she must have put me on her calendar that every so often she would just send me a note and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I worked on this project. I did X, Y, Z. Or I hope, I saw, that Novant made, or at the time I was, first when I met her, I was at the Charlotte Hornets, and then I was at Novant Health, and she would send me a note and say, hey, I saw X happen on LinkedIn. She was just staying connected with me. Well, what's crazy is on 4th of July, a couple years ago, she just sent me a text message and said, hey, I hope you're having a wonderful 4th of July. Just the day before, I was talking with somebody internally about, hey, we got to find somebody that's really eager. And we were talking about all these qualities that we were looking for in this individual for a position that we were going to be launching at Novant Health. And I sent her a note and I said, did you graduate? And she's like, I just graduated in May. I said, well, what are you doing? She said, I'm looking for a job. I connected her with this individual at Novant Health, and lo and behold, here she is. She went to work for Novant Health. The reason why I share that with you is because the key is networking. And so it was a 2-year journey. It wasn't like, hey, in 6 weeks she got a job, but she showed perseverance, and that demonstrated a lot to me that she was going to stick with it. She knew that there was potential with regards to networking. So anyway, the takeaway here is always look up the speaker that's going to be speaking with you. Look for what type of connection you might have, and look at the mutual connections and find a way to stay connected. Because at the end of the day, people do things for people they know. So make sure you build out your network. That's one reason why I would definitely encourage you, capitalize on your alumni network here at UNCC. That is just a powerful network for you. Okay, so let's move on and talk about, here is my career journey. I started in the Motor City of Detroit, and in my journey, it has brought me to the Queen City, and I've had an amazing ride so far. But what I want to start with is, when you look at this, it's kind of like, just a fun little graphic. But when I think about when I started my career journey and my career mapping, like I said, I was born in the Motor City, and I went to Western Michigan University, which is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm going to start with a story about when I got to Kalamazoo. I didn't have any money. I was completely broke. I had to pay for my own education. And I answered an ad in the Western Michigan school newspaper, and it was looking for somebody to file. Well, I'm like, I know the alphabet. I know A through Z. I can definitely file. Well, long story short, I went to work for an investment firm. And then basically, they sat me by the front door. I went there a couple days a week, and I had to file the tickets, with people's trades. So their last name was like Anderson or Smith or whatever it was. Well, the CEO, the owner of the investment firm, he would come in, and I was really green then, but I am an extrovert off the chart. And whenever he'd walk in, I would say, good morning, how are you? Blah, 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 blah. I wasn't taking a lot of cues that he wasn't as engaged as I was. So anyway, long story short, he brought in a bunch of presents, and he put them in the corner room of the board. He put them in the corner of the boardroom. And one day I saw those presents, and it was right before Christmas. So I went down to his office and I knocked on the door and I said, hey, I see that you brought all those presents in, but I thought maybe I could help gift wrap them. I saw at the mall that they charge $5.50 a box. I'll charge you $5. Like, I thought I'm giving him a break. When he looked over his glasses, he peered at me and he said, Kim, no, I'll pay you $6. So anyway, I came in that weekend, I wrapped all the presents and they were so beautiful. And that's just because I was really hungry because I needed money for sustainability for school. Well, let me just tell you, he came in that Monday and he's like, what did you do? I was like, remember, I gift wrap, you're going to pay me. And he laughed and he said, you know what? No, he's like, my family's going to know I never wrapped those because I've never put a bow on the present. Well, long story short, what that relationship developed into is I started working for him and his wife in their home. They gave me more opportunity. They exposed me to things that I would never have been exposed to. They came to me one day and asked me and told me they wanted to start a family foundation. I didn't know anything about philanthropic giving. They exposed that to me. I started their family foundation for them. I started other initiatives for them. They served on for-profit boards. They served on the Stryker Corporation board and gave me exposure to helping put together the board packet for the comp and leadership. I got to see how you determine a CEO salary. I got to see how you determine stock options. They gave me all of this rich exposure. Now, I could have looked at that as administrative tasks, but I was a sponge. I was soaking all of that up. I can tell you today that one, they laid the groundwork for where I am today. In addition to that, there are things that they exposed me to in my 20s through that opportunity that today I use when I'm in the boardroom with my CEO and the Novant Health board. So I am eternally grateful for that opportunity. So to me, the takeaway is you never know who you're talking to. I could have just gone in and just done filing and been out. But what they exposed me to, what the opportunities that they gave me, I can never have thanked them. I cannot thank them enough for that because it set me on my career path of where I am today. So the next stop, I ended up here in Charlotte. But before I jump into the fact that I went to work for the Charlotte Hornets, I actually worked for Novant Health first. And then I left Novant Health, went to work for the Charlotte Hornets, and then I went back to Novant Health. So what I tell folks is I'm basically a two-timer with Novant Health. And the reason why I'm starting here is because I'm going to really do a deep dive into the experiences at Novant Health. But how did I end up at the Charlotte Hornets? Once again, I don't know if any of you were around, but back in the day, well, still, Michael Jordan and the Charlotte Hornets have a very strong partnership with Novant Health. Novant Health is the official healthcare provider for the Charlotte Hornets. And back in the day, I used to have responsibility for that partnership. And many years ago, about 10 years ago, Michael Jordan did some commercials and some print ads with Presbyterian Hospital. And, like a fun one in the commercial is they did Michael's heartbeat. And instead of hearing, a heartbeat, you heard a dribble. And through that journey of doing those commercials and print ads, I got to know Michael really well. And Michael said, hey, you should come work for me over at the Charlotte Hornets. Well, I had a pretty good gig at Novant Health. I thought, why would I want to jump over to the Charlotte Hornets? Well, let me tell you a couple things. Number one, back in the day, the Charlotte Hornets were the worst team in the history of the NBA. So there was nowhere to go but up. Two, I was going to work for one of the greatest athletes of all time. So the exposure and opportunity were going to be paramount. And so I decided, I talked to the CEO of Novant Health. I told him about the opportunity. And I said, you know what? And he looked at me, he goes, Kim, you should do this. This is a great opportunity for you. Everything that you'll be able to learn. So I made the jump and I went over to the Charlotte Hornets. But the one thing that I want to share with you is, in every presentation, you like to start with statistics. So 48 out of 320 vice presidents in the NBA are women, which is more than the NFL and the Major League Baseball. So professional sports, it is a really tough place for women. It's not female friendly at the top. So I think to myself, if I could help make a difference there, then you know what? I'm really proud of my time that I spent in professional sports. So the next I want to jump to, and thank you so much for the introductory about Novant Health and about our system. We are a $5 billion integrated healthcare system that spans across the Carolinas and Virginia with more than 30,000 team members. And I feel like I have a privilege every day to make an impact. The next slide, I just want to share real quick about Novant Health. When you look at this slide and all the numbers that are on the slide, really what we are in the business of is caring for people. So when you look at that number of 5.5 million encounters, we touched 5.5 million people last year. And so what I really like is knowing that I work for an organization that is about making an impact. And we make an impact on people from the moment from birth until the moment that we help someone sunset in their life. So anyway, I'm very proud of these numbers, and these numbers really reflect people. And like I said, I'm a two-timer with Novant Health. And so I share this because when I decided to make the jump back to Novant Health, I called the folks at the MBA office in New York, and I told them that I was going back to Novant Health. And they said, Kim, you're just like LeBron, you're going home. Because everyone knows that it's in my DNA to want to help people and be part of an organization that is their mission. So when you look at this slide and you think about everyone has been exposed to healthcare in their lifetime, but 80% of the healthcare workforce is made up of women, and only 20% have key leadership roles. How about this? That in research, 25 to 35% of the healthcare industry C-suite is made up of women. And so I feel like I am really trying to influence this statistic and influence and help women grow in the healthcare industry and in other aspects. That's one reason why I'm very involved with women's executives here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, so let's move on and think about what is it that you really need. So yeah, let's really get started. And what is it that you really need in your recipe for your career? And so I always think about my career as like needing certain ingredients. And I have really refined it down to 7 ingredients. And I'm hoping most folks today have heard of a book called The Purple Cow. If you have not, I encourage you to write it down. I encourage you to order it. It is a really short read. And I'll just give you a real high level overview of the book. So basically, if you were driving down the road and you saw a field of cows and you looked over and you saw a purple cow, you would say out loud, there's a purple cow, right? Well, the reason why I say that is because you have to treat your career just like being a purple cow. What are you doing to stand out? What are you doing to make a difference? What are you doing in the workplace so that folks around you that have the opportunity to elevate you are like, hey, you're a purple cow. She's a purple cow. He's a purple cow. We've got to elevate purple cows. You have to figure out how are you going to stand out. So again, I encourage you to read that book. Okay, so what are the 7 ingredients? And so let's get started. Okay, the first ingredient I want to talk about is, so think about, when was the last time someone said to you, awesome job? I want you to think about that. The second thing that I want you to think about was, when was the last time you said to someone, excellent, way to go? I know this sounds really simple, but these words are very, very powerful because words, number 1, words of affirmation. That is the first ingredient that you need. Those words are so powerful because what words of affirmation do, they inspire you and others. So when I think about words of affirmation, when someone tells you like, nice job, great job, you want to continue to do great things. So, for example, my CEO at Novant Health, Carl Armato, he has refined and perfected this. So, one tidbit that he shared with me is we were in a meeting one time with a peer of his, a CEO, who was being very, I would say, very disrespectful to one of their direct reports. And after the meeting, I walked out of there and I was like, I can't believe what I just witnessed, right? And my CEO said to me, he said, Kim, you never get the best out of people if they're working in fear. So you've got to inspire people. You've got to make people feel like they're doing a good job. And so he does such an outstanding job of really giving words of affirmation to people when he sees them doing something remarkable. For example, if he sees somebody walking in the halls of our hospital and they stop and pick up trash, he will personally stop and thank them. He will say, hey, thank you so much for making our campus look beautiful. Thank you so much for, I appreciate what you did. Those words are just so powerful. So it makes people want to follow you, and it makes you want to follow people. And this, folks I've had say to me, well, that's just this is important when you get to the top of the food chain. Well, that's not really true, because words of affirmation are powerful no matter where you are in your career journey. And I would say I'd encourage you to really perfect words of affirmation. Okay, the next one is in your career, you will have moments when others will be looking to you for energy. So, at Novant Health, I went back and I had shared with you earlier that Novant Health is the medical provider to the Charlotte Hornets, which back in the day was the Charlotte Bobcats. And our marketing leader, Katie Everett, who is still with Novant Health, had a conversation with our CEO back then, many years ago. Gosh, that was probably close to 15 years ago. And when she had a conversation with him about hey, we need to find somebody that can actually execute this contract for Novant Health, because Novant Health had never been a medical provider for a professional sports team. And so anyway, Katie and our CEO told me about this partnership, and they approached me and they told me that, hey, Novant Health Presbyterian Hospital is going to be they're going to be the official healthcare provider. And they said, we need somebody to lead that and execute all the deal points of that partnership. Well, they said they would like me to do it. Well, the first thing I did is I went back to my office and I typed in NBA.com. I didn't know anything about the NBA. But you know what? The last thing that my marketing leader said to me when she walked away, she just said, Kim, you can do this. I never built a partnership before. I didn't know anything about professional sports. I didn't know anything about the NBA. But because I knew from her words that she was empowering me. Empowering. So that's a feeling of believing that you can do it. So I, now in the role that I serve, I have a lot of individuals that come to me, especially from the executive leadership development. And empowerment is the key. To me, that is the key driver, because people ask me questions and they'll say well, what do you think I should do? Well, how should I do this? And I often turn it around on them and I will say, well, what do you think we should do? And they'll tell me. And then I'll say, you know what? I trust you. I know that you're going to do the right thing. Because people want to feel empowered, and you want to be empowered. You want to be empowered, and you need to empower individuals around you. The next one is, and I tell folks, take 2 scoops of this for your ingredients. Opportunity comes, and you will also have to make opportunity. I have people tell me over and over, you are so lucky. You got to work, the jobs that you've had, the opportunities that you've had, the experiences that you've had. And I tell folks all the time, Opportunity comes and you have to make opportunity. Think about that very first story that I told you about when I was in college. I could have just filed and went on my merry way, but I took a chance and I made opportunity. I went down to his office and I exposed myself. I made myself vulnerable for that opportunity, which flourished and developed into a relationship that I could never have imagined. The other thing is you got to think about like your mindset. Like I tell folks all the time, I am a warrior when it comes to opportunity. I literally can find an opportunity for growth in anything. I will learn something. I will learn something from today. I will learn something from this presentation. I will learn something from you all when we get to the Q&A. You know, I have people tell me all the time, well, I work for a terrible boss. You know, there's like nothing I can learn from them. That's not true. Even when you have a terrible boss, you are learning something. You are learning about what you would never do when you're the boss or when you become the boss. So that ingredient is opportunity. Look for opportunity everywhere. You know, I quote Kathy Bassant, who's with Bank of America, top executive. She said once, she doesn't have time for plate spinners. People that just go around and spin and that really aren't taking time for or aren't taking advantage of the opportunity that's been presented to them. So when you see an opportunity, you better take advantage of it. Take a double dose of that. The next one is you got to believe. You got to believe that you got to believe in where you are headed. So this is the thing that I want you to really listen careful with regards to career mapping. So I tell you right now, whatever you're doing right now, I want you to think about not the next job, but that next job after that. Where do you see yourself in 2 jobs? Because what you need to do is you got to focus on that second job, not what you're doing today, not what you're going to do next time, but where do you see yourself? Because that next job is a stepping stone to get there. So if you think like, okay, I want to be in X job in 2 years. So let's say for myself, two jobs ago, I'm like, I want to be chief of staff. Well, what did I have to do to get into the chief of staff role? So what I did, I'll use myself as an example. Go find chief of staff role job descriptions. Go Google them, read them. Look at what do people expect out of a chief of staff? What is that skill set? What is it? Well, then you better start picking away so that when that time comes, you can demonstrate that you've had exposure, you've had opportunity, and you're relevant in each one of those spaces. For example, one thing that I knew for me to grow inside of Novant Health, I had to have an advanced degree. The thing that I do, the reason why I make such an important push about this is because I never want someone to say, well, you don't have this, and that prohibits me from having that job opportunity. So take control of that, but you've got to believe that you can do it. Because if you don't believe, no one else is going to believe that you can do it. So the point is about believing in yourself. What does Warren Buffett say about believing? The one thing that he says is, and I firmly believe in this strategy, is make a list of 10 things you want to accomplish in your lifetime, okay? Or in your career. Then go back, write the 10 down, then go back and scratch out 6 of them. Because his philosophy is, if you are trying to accomplish all 10, you can, because you're going to get bogged down in the 6 that aren't important. And that's going to distract you from the 4 that are really important to accomplish. So 1, believe that you can do it. And then it turns into knowing that you can do it. So the next one is, I read in the Harvard Business Review, there's an article about the 10 things that you can do to advance your career. And number 1 in those 10 things that I just want to point out is you got to be a change agent. In the world that we live and work in, it requires you to be nimble. Be okay with saying, okay, I got to try this. I recently threw out an idea at work to a person in a meeting. And I said, hey, why don't we try this? Hey, this is a neat idea. And they said to me, oh, we tried that. We tried that about 10 years ago and it didn't work. And I said, okay, well, you think maybe we could try it today? Because the world is in a different place. Our industry is in a different place. And the people that we're working with are different. So maybe we could try it. And so what people look for and what people feed off of is your confidence. So when you speak with confidence and conviction, it's easier for people to buy into it. It's easier for you to believe yourself. It's easier for people to rally around the idea. I will share, not every idea is bought into, right? And there was an idea that I pitched many, many years ago to my CEO, and I pitched it with conviction. And after he said, Kim, he wasn't feeling it the same way I was feeling it. And after the presentation, which we didn't move forward with, he goes, but you know what? I appreciate your confidence, because he knew I believed in it. And still to this day, I have that presentation in a file folder hanging in my office. And I tell people all the time, it was about timing. But you know what? Folks at that table, they knew I believed in it. They know that I have confidence around it. And I believe that I'm going to launch that program one day at Novant Health. I don't know when, but it's still sitting in that file, and I'm going to do it one day. So confidence. The next one is, when I think about when I started the presentation, I talked about why it's a privilege to be here today. And so many people for me opened doors. They answered my emails. They encouraged me. They empowered me. They gave me opportunity. They believed in me, and they built my confidence. So I owe it to others to do the same. So no matter where you are in your career journey, always have gratitude and always give back to others. So when someone asks me to present, especially to somebody that is furthering their education and they want to better themselves, I feel an obligation to give back. I feel an obligation to pay it forward. And I feel like I owe it to folks around me and to future generations to always give back, because folks did it for me. Okay, the last ingredient last but not least, is everyone needs a support network. This is personally and professionally. Folks will say to me, yeah, but you're a workaholic. Do you have work-life balance? And my answer to that about work-life balance is there is no real answer for work-life balance. Work-life balance is about what's right for you. But what I will say about that is I love to go to work. I get a ton of energy out of it. I am motivated. I am a work warrior. There is no one out there that can outwork me. No one. They might be smarter than me, but they can't outwork me. But my work-life balance is because I get so much energy and I thrive off of going to work and feeling like I'm accomplishing something. So my work-life balance is going to be very different than somebody else's. But with that said, my team and folks that work for me, if they want to leave at 5 o'clock, they want to leave, or they don't want to work on a Saturday, or they're not working at 11 o'clock at night, I don't hold it against them, because everybody's work-life balance is different. So I'm never going to judge someone else because they make different choices than I do. So that is about work-life balance and making sure that you have a support network. Personally, I have a huge support network. You will see in the pictures in the presentation in front of you that I have a daughter, and I feel, one, that I am inspiring her, I'm empowering her, and I'm telling her that it's okay that women can achieve success. It is okay for you to be driven, and I want to model that behavior for her. The other thing is, I'm very fortunate. I moved both of my parents down. I moved my mom down last year, and my dad just relocated. My parents live with me, so I have an awesome network and support system personally. But professionally, I encourage all of you. People will say, well, who is your mentor? I'm not I don't have a one particular mentor. What I put together is a board of directors. I have 7 professional individuals that I have on my personal board of directors. And they are all at different seasons of their career. Some folks are, newer in being an executive. I have some on my board of directors that are retired. I have some that are like in my peer group. I have some that are men. I have some that are women. Because what I want is I want folks that are going to be honest with me, that they're going to give me their objective opinion through their lens. And I want different lenses. I want people to tell me, well, this is how I perceive you. This is how I think you're showing up. This is what I think you do really good at. This is what I think you could do better at. And those folks, that is my professional board of directors. So I encourage all of you to think about, well, who is your board of directors? And I will leave you with regards to this aspect is in your support, how do you want to be perceived? Because when you talk to your board of directors, ask them, okay, well, this is how I want to be perceived. How am I showing up? So in the workplace, I will say to folks, hey, how do you want to be perceived? Well, I want to be perceived, as professional and sophisticated and knowledgeable. Okay, well, if you want to be perceived like that, show up on time. Show up on time. Because when you don't show up on time, it tells other people that you think you're more important than them. So really utilize that support network of having a board of directors. One last thing about that. I personally do not believe that your boss is part of your board of directors, because you're using your board of directors to help you show up best in front of your boss. And I think it's too difficult for a boss, your one-up leader, to be a part of your board of directors. They should be giving you support. They should be giving you counsel, but their counsel will be coming through a very different lens than your board of directors. So in closing, I want to close with going back to the book about, the purple cow. How are you standing out? What ingredients do you need more of? And what do you need less of? And so again, thank you. And I am more than happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Kim. What a wonderful presentation, and what great advice for our students who are going to be launching careers in the near future. We really appreciate it, and we're glad that giving back is such an important part of your career plan, because we're clearly benefiting from that today. Mm-hmm. We are now at the part of the program where you'll have the chance to do a Q&A with Kim Henderson in our session room. Before I tell you how to do that, I want to point out that next week we have a group from the London Stock Exchange group coming in, and they will be talking with you about showcasing your experience on your resume, which is obviously an extremely important skill to learn to get to that position where you can do the kind of work you want to do. I also want to remind you that if you attend 3 A-to-I sessions during our whole series, and they take place every Friday at 11 o'clock like this one, we will add you to a LinkedIn group, an Accelerate to Industry LinkedIn group that we're creating, where we'll push out beneficial content and allow employers that we interact with to push out content that they'd like you to see. So make sure you attend at least 3 of those, because that's a wonderful opportunity to get that information. So without further delay, we can go to the session room, unless you have anything to add, Ivana.
No, I think that was so inspirational, Kim. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The way you do that is you hit leave on the screen you're on, and then on the left side of the screen, you'll see the option for sessions, and you can enter the session room. There'll only be one choice today. Now, let me explain that 10 people are able to unmute their cameras and mics and ask him a question directly. Once 10 people have done that, the rest of you can still be in the room listening and watching, but you won't be able to unmute. So once you've unmuted and you've asked your question, if you could leave the room and then come back if you want to continue to listen, that will free up a spot from someone else. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring it. But thank you again so much, Kim. And we will now leave and go to the session rooms.
Perfect.